Uttara, I have a question.
Yeah.
So this definition of consciousness is of aware, it being more of an awareness is sounding more like the I-ness.
Like the
So
I.
I am,
Hmm.
so I am a little confused. Then isn't that what we defined as ahankara? That
Yes,
when you,
yes, that was my question to a lot of people in the beginning. That's
uh,
exactly it. So that the difference between these two is that uh, when the soul is identifying itself as aham, this is
hmm,
me, that
hmm,
is different. And the ahankar, which is material, is the
hmm,
one which provides a feeling of I-ness with the body. The
okay,
body is not you, and yet you have a feeling of I-ness with it. That glue is ahankara. So that aham of your aham is substituted or put on the body, and you
Resisted.
start feeling that this is me,
hmm,
so much
okay.
so that you even forget what you are originally. That is.
I don't know still. See, when you asked what is consciousness, I've thought about it quite a bit, thinking, is it like an air? Is it something else? What is it? That,
So
what could be the
instead of
quality of it?
so you have to think why you categorize something as conscious and something as not conscious. Okay, that is what will give you the answer. The physical characteristics of it, if I may call it physical, because obviously it is not made of matter, so therefore it has no physical attributes. Therefore it is not possible for you to understand those attributes till you go into samadhi and see yourself, because there is no size to it, there's no shape to it, there's no smell, no taste, no looks. So how will you know it? Because you are used to sensing with your senses.
Senses. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is why if you try to evaluate how, what is this thing, you will
Hmm.
not. And yet you are aware of this awareness all the time. That is what we do in samadhi, that you get rid of all these paraphernalia which you are attached to all the time, and which diverts your attention from what you really are. And then you zero in on that pure consciousness, that is you. And you then understand that I neither have sattva nor raja nor tama. I don't have an attraction towards anything, I don't feel anything. Then you start seeing um, yourself. So the main characteristic which defines consciousness is that it has knowledge, both present, past, and of course you can have little bit, you can see into the future. Like you know that for the next 1 minute at least you are sitting for this class.
Hmm.
Okay. So
Okay.
we will move on, and some more of your questions will be answered as Kapila discusses further. So we had covered this whole thing in the first chapter from sutras 115 to 118, and I will recommend that you please go back and read those also once again. Kapila is saying some certain similar things, and still telling us something more in addition to what he had already said. So, for example, here this Purusha Bahutvam he has connected to Jivan Mukt. While there he had said it is because of Janma Adi Vyavastha, that Janma is happening at different places, under different situations, in different bodies. Their experiences are different. Therefore, Purusha Bahutvam is there. Here he has told us that Purusha Bahutvam is, you can get it pratyakshataha. Uh, from direct witnessing, you can experience the fact that there are many souls, by the fact that the Jivan Mukta has become Mukta, is now liberated, and yet you are tied down. So that is another proof for the fact that there is Purusha Bahutvam. So then now he takes up the Advaitavad. So he says, Upadhischet tatsiddha punartvetam. So, as I told you last time, the main way in which Advaitvad is explained is that you have this single consciousness that is called Brahma, and parts of it are acquire an upadhi on themselves. Upadhi is like a disguise. So they have this different hats which are put on parts of it, and they now become different entities, different living beings. So this upadhi itself is an illusion, and of course the world that they see is also an illusion. So if Kapila says that if you say that these Purusha Bahutvam which is seen, these different awarenesses which are seen, is only because of upadhi, that they are looking through different glasses, you can say. Then he says tat siddho punardvaitam. That he says that if that is settled, if it is a matter which you take as definitely proven, that there is this upadhi and there is this consciousness, then you are again talking of two things. This is not one thing, because upadhi cannot be the consciousness itself. It is like, you know, when you're looking down at an ocean and you want to draw territorial boundaries, say between India and Pakistan, India and Sri Lanka, India and Indonesia, then there is no boundary which you see over there. So you have to take another item, which is a piece of paper, and draw a map on this, make a drawing, and there you draw a line that, okay, this is the territorial boundary of India on the ocean. So many miles from the coast here at this point is India occupies that ocean that is controlled by India, and the rest is by somebody else. On the ocean itself, it is not possible to draw a boundary unless you take something else. So you build a brick wall, you take a piece of paper and make a boundary on it. On a single substance, you cannot separate it unless there is a separator. So this upadhi has to be different from consciousness. Therefore, you have at least two things. Now you are no longer left with one thing. Okay, so he says punaha dvaitam. So then he says dvabhyamapi pramana virodha. He says you take two also. Still, it is against the pramana. It is against Shabda Praman, it is against Pratyaksha Praman, it is against Upavana Praman. So one Praman which he gave was above, that the Mukta has become Mukta, while all the remaining are still in bondage. So you can see it, if I can picturize it for you, it's like a hand. So this hand, we will all agree, is a single entity. Now I make pictures here. I make upadhis here, here, here. I make one face here, different face here, different face here, different face here. And now I say, okay, now I will call this Harry Potter, etc., and give them different names even. And now I say, okay, so now these are different beings. And now I prick this thumb. So does only this thumb feel that pain?
No.
No. Okay.
The thumb is seen as the origin, but the pain is felt in the whole.
In the whole, exactly. So that is what defines the unity of this hand. If I could, if this was really, really separate, then if I pricked it here, nothing would be felt on the other ones at all, because they are the same consciousness. They are, sorry, different consciousnesses. When they are the same consciousness, even though I've disguised them with some different things, I can even put clothes around it and make them into different persons. Still, whatever this one feels, this one has to feel. I remove this thumb and say, "Ye mukt ho gaya." This has become free. It is liberated now. These are going to hurt a lot, because this thing hurt. Okay, so if by somehow we could remove it without hurting, creating hurt, these are still tied down. They are not released, which means that they are not single. If they are single, then they must all either be liberated together or not be liberated at all. So these are against Pramana. Okay, these are all Pramanas, I know, but these may not suffice for you, but please think over it. That is all I can plead to you, because this is logic, and there is some irrationalism which we are living with, that is also there, and it is deeply imbibed in us, so it's difficult to remove. However, please give it a thought. That is what I will play to you. So
So,
yes.
so here by the word Dvabhyam, Kapila is indicating the Upadhi versus the Mahapurusha type. Huh?
No. Punardvaitam, when he said, Dvait means then there is a duality. Okay. So if you are saying there is an Upadhi, then you are agreeing to a duality. Be clear that you are not talking of Advaitva, Advait, when you are saying Upadhi. Okay. So that is the first thing which he put a knife in the argument about Advaitvad. He said that if you have said Advaitvad, either you say Maya or you say Upadhi, whatever it is different from this consciousness. Therefore, there is a separate entity which you are agreeing to, which is, therefore, you are agreeing to a duality. Now, even if you accept that duality, so that by Dvabhyam, this is Tritiya Vibhakti Dvitiya Vachan, Dvivachan, he is saying, even if you consider those two things, that is the Purush and the Upadhi, then also there is a virodha with the Pramana. There is a contradiction with logic. Okay. Okay. Moving on. Dvabhyamapya virodhanna purvamuttaram cha sadhaka bhavat. So he says that even if for a moment we accept that by some other logic which we are missing at this point in time, these two, in accepting this duality, there is no avirodha. There is no virodha. Okay, there is no contradiction in accepting upadhi and purusha, this duality. Or even Advaitvad and Dvaitvad. Actually, let us take Advaitvad versus Advaitvad. Even if we accept for that in some way there is no virodha, then what is the means by which you prove that there is Advaita or there is Dvaita? What is the proof that you have? Give me some proof too about where is, who says, or how do you prove that there is Dvaita or there is Advaita? So some verses are given, Aham Brahmasmi, and some such things are taken from the Upanishads, which actually are taken out of context. And the rest of the Upanishad was talking about how the soul is different from matter. And as I have told you, when we say Brahma when we are talking of the Jiva, then we are saying that because the soul is also very huge with fantastic properties as compared to matter. And Brahma in its original form means great, huge. So it does not mean some particular entity. As we have seen, there are yogic shabdas and there are Lokik shabdas. So the Lokik meaning of Brahma now we have assigned to God. But that restriction is not applicable when we are reading Vedas and Vedic texts. So that is the other explanation. However, if you consider those sentences within the given context, actually they do not mean that. Just as I have shown you that in Sankhya itself, there is this sutra which comes Ishvara Siddhe. Now, when you read it out of its context, it is taken as Kapila is saying because Ishwar is unproven, and that is taken to mean Ishwar does not exist, God does not exist. However, when you read in the context, he is telling you that the Pratyaksha Pramana of the yogis is also to be considered, even though it is non-sensory perception. Even though it is non-sensory perception and it is actually direct perception of the soul, that direct perception of the soul is also to be considered because there is no other way to prove God. The existence of God cannot be proven by any physical means. And even logic mostly, some people can see the presence of God in the logic which exists in this world. However, for some people, if you really go by the scientific method as we call it today, you cannot really ever pin down another entity which is controlling this whole world. Okay, so that is what he's saying. Purvam uttaram cha sadhaka abhavat. There is nothing to prove either Advaitvad or Dvaitvad. These two, they are just hypothetical concepts which cannot be proven. And just like today's science, you know, the string theory is there, and some people say 9 strings, some will say 14, some will say 16. These are all based on equations, and there is no correspondence in real life. And you can keep making as many strings as you like, but where is the connection with the real world? You have to show that connection there. Till it is proven in this real world, it is just a hypothetical and abstract concept. Maybe a possibility, but really not a possibility because it is not proven. It is contradicted by experience. So, however, he doesn't leave it there, and he continues into the next sutra, and he says, Prakashatas tat siddha karma kartra virodha. So he says, the Purva Pakshi says, okay, forget about Upadhi. It is the soul itself, which by its own prakasha, that is its own consciousness, its own awareness, it creates this duality. So even the Upadhi, let us junk it, it is the soul itself which creates this imagery. It is it is lighting up this world, we can say. So then Kapila says that then there is a virodha, a contradiction between the karma and the karta. That means you are saying that now this consciousness is revealing this world, is lighting up the different entities in this world. That is, it is making these entities know each other even. Then if it is the awareness, whom is it lighting up? What is it lighting up? There is only this awareness. So where is the karta and where is the karma? Where does your karta end and the karma start? I am becoming aware of this illusion, so and which I have generated myself. So where is this illusion starting? Where, that is the karma, and where is this karta? Okay, it is again like drawing a line in the ocean. That you are saying that this one single consciousness only is prakashayati, it is lighting up the rest of the world for you. But then what is this rest? What is that karma which it is lighting up? If it by its own prakasha. Okay, then he gives the answer himself. Jadavyavritto jadam prakashayati chidrupaha. He said basically, now this is an assertion that if you follow that track, you will keep hitting contradiction after contradiction, because the reality is that this Chit Roop, this form of consciousness, that is consciousness, it is different from inanimate matter. Jada Vyavritto, Jadam Prakashyati. That is the one which is lighting up this inanimate matter. Inanimate matter cannot be revealed. It cannot be itself which is revealing itself. I cannot explain it to you better than this. I'm sorry.
No, I understand. There has to be an observer for the prakashana, for the what is seen in the prakashana.
Correct.
Because one rock doesn't see the other rock, but there is a chidrupa which is able to see both of them.
Correct. So the observer and the observed have to be two different entities. You can observe your own body, however, you cannot observe your own eye. Similarly, you can smell something, but you cannot smell the nose. That is the difference between the observer and the observed. So when I am observing with my eyes, my karta is my eye and my finger is my karma. So they have to be different. Otherwise, I cannot observe the same. Okay, I can become aware of the same. Yes, when you are sitting in samadhi and you delete everything else and just you are there, then you become aware of yourself. That awareness is different from showing, revealing something else. Okay, so please.
So here we should not take prakashana to mean simply only light. It means to be aware. I mean, perception is the prakashana.
To generate awareness. To generate awareness. Okay, so just like the sun lights up the world and shows everything in it. So similarly, this consciousness lights up this body and shows the world around it.
Uttiravi, I may not be able to see my own eyes, but I know or I'm aware of that the eyes are there, exist for me, and I'm able to see things through that. I'm aware of it, but I may not be able to see directly my own eye.
Yes, exactly. So that is the difference. That is the difference. So being self-aware is not making observable. Okay, so when you are saying in Advaitvad that this consciousness is making observable these other things, so we have now removed upadhi. So now we are saying yes, now this consciousness itself is showing up different dharmas in different entities. Then who is the observer and what is it showing up? Now again that same question arises, how can the same thing generate different things? So the karta and karma, now again there is a clash between the two.
Actually, then the jada vyavruttaha here refers to the sharirika manifestation of the chidrupa, because the sharira is jada, so he is called jada vyavrutta in that state.
Yes, exactly. So sorry, I think I made a mistake. This should be jada vyavritta. I think
vyavruttaha. It is a uttva, no?
Jada vyavrittaha. Yeah, correct. Yeah, jada vyavrittaha. So jada vyavritto. Yeah. Okay. So I think we can do one more. So after he has asserted this, one more question arises, which he now considers in the next sutra. Na shruti virodho raginam vairagyaya tatsiddhe. So he says that the question can arise that you are saying that this inanimate matter is lighted up by this body, and the ultimate aim of this body, the ultimate goal is to make sure that the consciousness separates from it and becomes mukta, right? That is what we were reading in the earlier sutta. So he comes back to the context from where he started. So then why connect it with the body at all? I think all of us would have felt this question too, if we had thought about it.
No, that we are explaining through the karma chain.
Yeah, but then why have karma? See, I won't have any karma if I'm not connected to the body. So if I'm meant to be mukt, let me be mukt. Why are you forcing me into a body, making me perform karma, then having to perform great austerities in order to finally be free again? So maybe it is clear to you because you have also been studying for a long time. But if you remember your childlike state before you started all this, you will remember that you also might have had this question. You may not have personally, but I definitely had that. Why is God creating this whole world if all we have to do is obtain mukti from it? Okay, so that same question the Purva Pakshi asked and says that. So there is a mutual contradiction between these two statements of the Shruti. Shruti is itself saying that the soul is being attached to matter and performing karma, etc., and having upabhoga, and then it has to become virakt and has to purify itself and perform meditation till it becomes mukta. So there is this mutual contradiction which exists. So he says that that is not so because raginam vairagyaya tatsite. This body has been created for the people who are attached to matter to become virakt from it. So while this is a kind of a little bit of a circular argument, but still what is essentially trying to tell you is that this is our nature. We have these attractions. So we have this attraction towards also the matter and towards God. As I've always told you that we are bipolar and we have this desire to go towards matter as well and towards God as well. This desire being different from raga dvesha, which I talk about. But this is the affinity of the soul towards one side matter and towards the other side God. So it is just the nature of things that this world goes around the way it does. And God gives us this opportunity to enjoy this world, and we will continue to enjoy it till as long as we have this affinity towards it. Then one day everything will suddenly seem meaningless to us, and we'll just drop it and we'll say, no, this is not what I want. This is not me, and I have had enough of this dukkha which I am facing every day, and I want out. That is when you attain your.
Actually, I look at it. Actually, this is very in Loka itself. We see this when we have to prepare any material. So let's say a patram, it has to go through 1000 beatings to become a nice shapely patram of some
Correct.
utility with
Correct.
some capability. So
Correct.
our soul also somehow I feel like God is sending it through the school of the world, so that
Yes.
over many janmas it gets annealed into something good.
Correct. Exactly. That's how it happens. So for the ragis, the ones who are attached to this world and the upabhog, this world has been created by God so that they will slowly move towards virakti, vairagyaya, for them to become virakt. So once they have attained that virakti, they will attain their ultimate purpose.
Maybe he has got another universe which is for such realized souls to live better.
So the universe may not be different, but yes, they live in different places and in ways in which you don't see them. Because obviously they're not attached to matter. See, only when we are attached to matter do we really become what is called nama, jati, and sthan. These are the things which define a being, and that is how we recognize beings. So when we go out of that, the soul to soul interaction, that definitely must be happening, but it happens at a different level, and that we cannot see with these eyes.
Okay. See now, just pitching a little bit of point for Dvaitavada. Okay, with a
Advaitavada.
practical viewpoint. See, there is
Yes, for
we are in agreement. Do we have the time?
yeah, I'm okay.
Just
Oh,
one,
okay.
just one clarification for the material. Having 1000 beatings and becoming into something that's usable. Only thing is the soul before it got connected to the matter, and after it gets separated, the character of the soul is the same. It's Nitya Shuddha Buddha. Going through this has not changed the what soul actually is. What's the identity of the soul is?
So
Is it not?
probably
The
while
aviveka is beaten out of it, isn't it? There is a mukti sthiti, and before that there is a aviveki sthiti.
so
Right. What
Aviveka is part of the body. It is
part of the body that when it only connects to the matter. Before
Yes.
that it was Shuddha, Nitya Shuddha Buddha, whatever. And
Mukta.
when it becomes Mukta, again Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta it is. So
Yeah.
in between, whatever the beatings that we are getting is again, like in a circle, if you start from point A, you've gone through the circle and you have
Let me explain it to you. So that's a very relevant question. So the thing is that the soul which is there, probably from what I have figured out, since it is not written in black and white, therefore I am telling you probably, but it seems to be a logical conclusion that one of the characteristics of the soul is jnana. So when the soul does have a ajnani state and a jnani state, so to move it from ajnana towards jnana, you have to pass through this world, and that is what is being provided in this way through the sansara. So some avivek is added on to you in order to make you one with your body. Because if you were not one with your body, and if you had to perceive yourself as the driver of a car, it would be very difficult for you to manage living itself. So God just adds that layer of aviveka in order to make you one unit with your body. But there is an intrinsic knowledge store which you have, which is also part of the soul. So that knowledge store is more for some, less for others, and some are in the middle. So that knowledge store you have to take up, and that is part of this world, is that part of that process. That is
So,
why also, if you recall this when we were talking of this adama, madhyama, and uttama, this thing adhikaris, they have to move in those between, in that level which you have achieved after samadhi. Also you have to keep trying, because samadhi, as you know, ritambara tat prajna, that your brain starts filling up. Not brain, actually it is your soul which is filling up with knowledge. So that knowledge is filling up in parts. It's not like one day you are ignorant and one day you suddenly are you know everything about the universe. It is slowly, drop by drop, it is coming to you. So therefore you have to continue on that path, and as much time as you can spend in enabling yourself and empowering yourself, that much your soul will move up. You are moving up, your knowledge bank is moving up.
Right. So do you think the soul did not have that knowledge that it gained through the life and birth cycles, and when it becomes muktatma, it got that knowledge?
Yes. So some what you acquire in this world, when you now go into your next birth, a whole lot of it will be covered up, but it is just under the surface, and God will provide you with
That is
situations.
all through the life and birth. That's all through the this cycle of life and death. Till you have that viveka khyati. My point is, where you have started the journey, the soul, before it got connected to the matter itself.
So again, this question is actually incorrect in this context. This is circular infinity. So you cannot say that the wheel started rolling at this point. There is no point.
That's why I said it's a circle. So where it started, the point, you're going through this, again you go to that point. again you go through this and you go to that point
See,
only.
there is like many circles basically.
Yeah, it's like a mini
Smaller,
circle.
larger.
No, it's like a rolling wheel. So you just
Yeah, it's like
keep,
a rolling wheel.
yeah, you keep rolling like that. So sometimes you are on the top and sometimes you are at the bottom.
And the rolling wheel is going around a circle.
Correct. So it is moving in a circle. Yes. Okay. So we'll take up Anuj's.
Oh, okay. If there is
Okay.
time, basically, my point was this: the problem with this Dvaitavad is nowhere it argues for identifying with the other nearby souls as something that matters, and they are societally connected, right? Whereas in Dvaitavad, by arguing that though apparently our living shariras may be different, our ragas may be different, and we have weak associations other than beyond the family, we seem to have weak associations and identity with others. Dvaita is trying to teach us an aspect of our pure self, which is not so. So trying to enforce that identification with the other soul so that there is some societal normalcy, congruence, and cooperative behavior, which is not murderous, not selfish.
So that has to happen even if you are a different being. See, if you are in fact one single being, then it is not even necessary to bring yourself into communion or whatever you want to call it with others.
No, that's because of our aviveka. The Advaitavada is trying to say, look, there is actually a soul within you which is pretty much the same as the one in any other living being. So treat all as you.
So that also even the Vedas say, because as far as you as a soul are concerned, as far as I as a soul are concerned, we are basically the same substance. However, our journeys are different. We are not the same. It is different from saying that we are one, and when you
I'm
say
not
we are
disagreeing.
similar,
From a
we are
Puritan
similar.
argument,
So
from
there
a
is a
Puritan
difference.
theoretical viewpoint, I am not disagreeing with the Dvaita, etc. I'm
Yeah,
saying
as
for
far as
the
similarity is concerned, there is.
Laukika usage, the definition of an Advaita seems to be helpful. That's all I'm pointing out.
So whatever you find helpful is good, but here we are trying to look at the science of it and delve deep into it. So we are not looking at the surface. If we have to look at the surface, you can say whatever you feel like, whatever works for you. But now we are looking what is the actual situation. So when we are discussing the actual situation, you have to differentiate between one and many which are similar. One cow or this whole herd of cows made up of similar animals. So that is where we are saying that it is a herd of cows, it is not one cow. Okay. So let us
But
end
I
it.
do, when I see, I realize this much more easily. I realize the Advaita Vada much more easily when I look at the activity of a beehive or an ant colony or something like that. Because their centrality and common intelligence is outside of each individual body. In humans, we may not see that because we are so blind to our own selfish ways. But I see that always in such
Yeah,
colonies.
I know from where you're coming, and there is this theory which has been propounded by Western scientists that they are as if there is a hive intelligence which is operating there, and
Exactly.
they are working towards a common goal. But again, I would like to tell you that if you separate yourself from our society and you go up as Meghadoot, like a cloud, you are looking over